Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, back again with Tim Forshee from Forshee Law. He is kind of the Swiss Army knife of attorneys. Former judge pro tem, an expert criminal defense attorney, firearms instructor, family law practitioner as well. Has helped me in a lot of places.
And like a Swiss Army knife, it gives the appearance of being able to do a lot of things well, but in reality, they're all pretty insufficient.
Writes NFA trusts, right? That's who my NFA trust is through, and so I'd recommend that for anybody.
Thanks, buddy.
For sure. And we had a couple of cases of people kicking down doors recently, and one in particular out of Dallas that while they were kicking down the door, hadn't kicked it down yet, some interesting observations on that. Our defender shot through the door 13 times, and I want to talk to the lawyer about that. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So, Tim, when you watched that video out of Dallas,
right,
what was your initial thoughts when you saw it go down?
Well, and again, we saw the Ring doorbell footage, I believe, right? And I don't know if
I don't think it was Ring, but it was another company, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't need to give an endorsement, some sort of door camera. I don't know what the shooter was seeing, right? I don't know that he had his cell phone out and he's looking at the video display from the camera. I don't know if he's looking through a peephole. I don't know if he's looking through a side window. I'm not sure what he's seeing, if he's seeing what we're seeing.
Yeah, so he said that he saw him have a gun.
Yeah.
So if you went and watched that video, it'll post by the time we get this out. It's not on YouTube yet when we're filming this.
Right.
He gave an interview to the media. We're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But he said he saw on his doorbell camera on his phone that the guy had a gun. And so he's clearly looking at that at some level and hearing them kick the door.
And that's important too that you said them, because it was a crew.
Two.
There was multiple people. We saw two. God knows how many people there were in the truck, right? Or whatever. So it was a crew of people. That was another factor, I think. Yeah.
And so I generally, as a rule, say don't shoot people through a door.
Right.
Because I have a barricade there and a barrier keeping me safe.
Right. And that's something you mentioned in the video. Folks, I know we're all on fixed budgets. None of us are rich billionaires, but the best $1,000 you will ever spend is to put a good security door on your entrance to your home. You don't have to worry about nobody's going to get through that without a chainsaw and a lot of time and a lot of noise, right?
Well, and I think that if you notice on that door, right, I pointed it out in the analysis, just spending a few bucks on 3-inch case hardened screws,
right,
and then they had that door bar, that goes underneath the doorknob and wedges.
It's the more professional version of the chair under the doorknob concept.
It worked really well. And you saw these big dudes kicking hard, and that door. If you go watch the interview, all of the fascia around the outside of the door had splintered, which means that door was taking incredible pressure, but it held.
Yep.
And so, okay, cool. But generally speaking, we say don't shoot through a door,
right?
Because is there truly an imminent deadly threat?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this case, because I see the guy has a gun, he's trying to kick my door down, I think he does have a case for imminent
And don't forget,
death.
I believe that this guy has a young child in his house and I assume a spouse.
It was him and his brother home at the time, and his girlfriend and their daughter were out of the house.
Okay, so
but he still got himself and another person.
He's got other people to be aware. Exactly right. Yeah. So I can't just go hide in the back of a closet and hope that the cops get here before the guy breaches the door, because I've got other people to take care of.
I got other people to take. And not only that, listen. In every state in the union, your home is your castle. Right. In some sense, right? You don't have a duty to retreat out of your home.
But he wasn't in the home, John. Then we talk about curtilage, of course. The area
the
immediately
defender
adjacent
was
to the
in
home.
his home, and the bad guy was just outside.
Correct. But the bad guy hadn't yet breached the castle, if you will, right?
But he's trying to breach the castle.
Yeah,
so I think you're going to get pretty good presumption.
By the way, I was mentioning to you, I was just on vacation in London last week, right? And I went to the Tower of London, and I got to hear the term that I hadn't heard in a long time: murder holes. And when I watched this video, I thought, this is where you need a murder hole. You need
a little spot.
You need about 55 gallons of hydrofluoric acid on the ceiling right above this guy, and then just have it just right on and solve the whole problem. That's how the Brits did it in 1066. So
listen, good enough for 1066 Britons, good enough for us. So I think he's okay there. But of course, then the other part is that he took 13 shots and hit zero.
The thing that struck me about the video the first time through was that. He fired 13 rounds in a flurry of panic, didn't hit his target, and where were the rounds hitting? And I'm like, oh my God, that's another apartment. The way, the apartments I lived in, they didn't have cement walls, they didn't have very good block wall construction with poured concrete and rebar. That's going right through into that apartment. And I just hope and pray that I'm not going to hear the end of the story that there's 2 little kids that were killed in that other apartment.
And thank God, according to the interview, they were out of the house. 20 minutes before this, that family had left the home.
Literally, thank God,
Thank God for that. And obviously, it was, that was my first thought too.
And you get into there's a term that I absolutely hate that Hollywood throws about and the media throws about to all of our peril, and that's the term excessive force. They use this all the time. When I watched that, I thought, dude, what are you doing firing 13 rounds wildly without being aware? You didn't follow Rule 4. You arguably didn't follow Rule 2. What are you doing spraying rounds like that?
Well, and why did he fire 13 rounds? Because that's all he had in the gun. That's exactly the truth. He said in the interview, right?
He emptied it out, all right.
He said in the interview, I ran out of guns. I fired the entire magazine. And he said, it surprised me when the police told me that.
Yeah.
So again, he's panicked.
Well, we hear that all the time.
We do hear that a lot.
People way underestimate the number of rounds they fired.
Yep. And again, I think, could I justify firing a round through the door? I think in this case, given the facts, given what he knew and what the facts were, I think he could.
Right.
Firing 13, that's an indicator of panic.
Right.
And could be seen as recklessness and negligence because of the other people on the other side.
Right.
So again, if I can see, no, wait a minute, I know he's right there in front of that door, and if I'm not right in front of the door, then I gotta slice the pie a little bit, and I know how to do it, and I go bang, and I shoot one in him and see what it does. Okay, 13. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about on this was, so you could be very cautious shooting through a door, but from a tactical perspective, very difficult. But then we have all this knowledge, Tim, because he gave an interview to the media, standing in front of the door. So all of the police tape with the measurements and stuff on it there was 15 holes in the door because the bad guy shot 2 back the other way, which you can tell which ones are which because is the puncture going in or is it coming out? And so there's all these little things, and he's standing right in front of the door giving an interview to the media, which quite frankly I never would, of course, because I'm a man of peace. But sometimes you want to get a stick and beat some of these folks in the media for taking these.
Well, and they're feeding an illness. I mean, I know this is a 60-year-old white guy talking, but the whole social media phenomenon in the last 15, 20 years in this country, there's a lot of. I mean, everybody wants to be a star. It's just like it's just like this thing that Andy Warhol said that everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. So if I can be a hero, if I can be, if this is going to be on the news tonight, I mean, it's just it is such a horrible idea from a legal perspective. One time I got hired by a family to go meet with a client who'd been involved in a shooting. By the time I got down to the jail, cleared security, and got to my client, they said, "Oh, he's over in the media room." What?
I'm sorry, what?
And he was just sitting down to do a press conference with a local TV crew. And I said, "Everybody out, this is not happening." And he was like, "Why? I wanted to be on TV tonight." His main goal was he wanted to be on TV. So you're about to cut your own throat and hand the prosecutor a win on a platter. Shut up. Yeah. And people, that whole, because the news media will be more than happy to toss you the knife to cut your throat with. They really
Absolutely.
will.
Absolutely.
Don't do it.
And their job is not to protect your rights. Their job is to tell a story. You want to tell a story? That's a compelling story.
And go ahead and put it on Instagram for all your friends, because the best friend that prosecutors and plaintiffs attorneys have come up with in the last 20 years is social media. We mine those accounts. I have a private investigator. First thing he does is he goes to all the social media accounts, and we will get gold nuggets in 75% of the cases. And shut up.
I believe that most people who are journalists, most people who are news media, they're trying to do a good job. They have decent hearts. They got good families they want to go home to. Most of them are good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people, but they have a job. My job is to tell a story.
That's right.
My job is to get the information out, what happened, and your perspective. Of course, the person who did it, their perspective on it is compelling.
I'm more cynical than you because I think that was the way the media was viewed and the way the media viewed itself up until maybe the 80s or so. And now I'm a lot more cynical about it.
Yeah, I mean, but I get to do media interviews, right?
Sure.
And I'm the guy that did a piece for Vice News, and people are like, "John, what in the world would you do that for Vice News?" And I'm like, well, if I don't do it, who's gonna?
Yeah.
And so, meet the journalists, talk to them, build some rapport, give them a story. Okay, fine. I did a piece in the Atlantic, which a lot of people would be like, "John, they're going to crucify you." And I was like, well, but again, if I don't, who's going to?
My experience has been that even if I'm very careful and cautious about what I say and I tell the story that I want to tell, editing's horrific.
A thing. I'm just saying, I still believe most journalists are trying to do their job, but you don't recognize what their job is.
Yeah.
Their job is not to protect your rights.
No.
Their job is not to paint you in a good light.
Not at all.
That's not their job. Their job is to tell a story. And just like you wouldn't want Bernie Madoff painted in a good light, you want Harvey Weinstein to be painted as the absolute lecherous, terrible human that he is.
Yeah. But when NBC News electronically manipulates the 911 call in the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case,
Bad news.
I mean, are they really getting the truth out there, or are they manipulating a story so that people click and they make more money in revenue? I mean, that's the cynical part of me. So just be aware.
Yeah, be
Two
aware.
rational people. I mean, and
Be aware.
John is the expert on this. I'm not, but I'm just very cynical about it. So, and again, just like we say, maybe it's a good idea not to talk to the cops. When in doubt, maybe it's and again, an information source giving an interview to the media for knowledge's sake is one thing. Giving an interview to the media when you just got involved in a shooting?
Terrible idea.
Wow. Yeah.
Terrible idea. Now listen, I say that, I give this stuff, I'm not talking about a defensive gunfight that I got into.
Exactly.
I'm not talking about things that could sink me personally, send me to prison, and cost me everything that I ever made. Those are different ideas. Right. I have a master's degree in communications, right? Biblical communication, MDiv. So, I do this for a living, right? So I talk to people for a living. You probably aren't any of that stuff. And if you've been in a gunfight, your entire future is at stake. You're fighting the fight for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. Assuming that whoever is in the media is a good person,
right.
Terrible idea. And of course, the second any lawyer shows up who might need to defend you in criminal court or in civil court, in the court of public opinion, would tell you,
shut up.
Shut up. What are you doing? There's literally no upside to this.
That's right.
But it is, the only upside is you get on the evening news, you make it on the YouTubes, on the Instagrams, on the TikToks. And so the kids these days can see that you were on the news.
On the TikTok.
On the TikToks.
I mean, I've been sitting next to a client in a hearing, and the judge asks them to state their date of birth, and they start talking. And I reach over and I squeeze their leg, and they keep talking. And I squeeze harder. I'm about to fracture their femur, and they keep talking. They just can't get it. And I'm like, why are you paying me $500 an hour for my advice to not follow my advice?
Right.
But people do. So don't be that person.
And the advice here is never give an interview to the media.
Yeah. Never.
After a defensive gunfight.
Nope.
Never. Let your lawyer.
I'm not even a huge fan of that, but under certain circumstances in today's modern era, that might be appropriate. But yeah, not you. You shut up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because guess what? If the prosecutor watches that interview and is on the fence about some things, is there anything in there that could be used? That you've given a statement, and it's a spontaneous statement.
How about after the Maui wildfires that happened a few weeks ago, when President Biden gave that wonderful answer to the question, what are we going to do about the Maui wildfires? And he said, no comment. Right? And you saw how people reacted to that. How about if you just don't answer at all? Right. That's what I've done. I've been walking up the courthouse steps and had media yelling questions at me. I don't turn and say no comment. I just ignore them and walk into the courthouse. There's no story.
Right.
That's
nothing to say.
Shut up.
Nothing to say. Just shut up. Yeah. So shoot through the door? Maybe. 13? Mm-hmm. Careful.
Not unless they're all hitting the guy and he's still standing up. In which case, reload as needed.
Careful.
Yeah.
Understand. Make a good home defense plan. That's the tactical side. Media?
No.
Not only no. Hell no. Shut up.
Capital H, capital N.
Yes, H-E, double hockey sticks. No, because of the danger it faces to you. Tim, thanks for the insight.
As always, buddy. Thank you.